Good afternoon and welcome to the very first episode of the Cultivated Jungle. My name is Nathaniel and I'm here in southwest Florida, and man is it hot out here. I am sweating up a storm. But I'm starting this channel to follow my adventures in setting up an edible jungle here in southwest Florida on my brand new piece of property that I bought about a year ago. Now, you may not be familiar with the term permaculture, but that kind of is the theme of what I'm doing here. I want to set up a backyard that is capable of sustaining me and anybody else who lives here. Now, this is a lot easier in southwest Florida, where stuff grows pretty much year-round, and you've got all these tropical plants like bananas. They put out a ton of food, a lot more than your regular garden plant. I haven't actually gotten any bananas yet from them. It takes a little while for these things. They're not actually trees, they're plants. And after they produce bananas, you cut them down and they grow back. But I'm going to give you guys a general overview of what I've done so far and why I've done it. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing right now is something that you haven't normally seen. It's not something people do. What I like to do is push the boundaries. I figure out what can be done, and I kind of take the next logical step, and I kind of go crazy with it. And you'll see when I take you a walk through here and I show you what I've done. So, without further ado, let's take a tour of the property. First thing I want to point out to you guys is I don't have a regular front yard. These are my neighbors. You can see they've all got grass, but mine is mulched, and there's a very particular reason for that. Now, down here in southwest Florida, we don't have a lot of good dirt. We have mostly sand. So what I did was I got some contractors, some tree specialists, to dump a couple loads of mulch. There was a big one right here, but I've already cleared all that one out. Now the purpose of mulching the yard is over a couple of months to a year, several years if you're living in a more temperate environment. Here stuff tends to break down pretty quickly. The layer of mulch will break down into rich soil. Plus, it has the immediate benefits of protecting anything you grow. See, it's a really hot day, and it hasn't rained here in, let me tell you, it's probably been about a week. But you can see right under the surface, all this stuff is moist. It's wet. It's starting to break down. Here's the sand I'm talking about. That stuff has no nutrients in it whatsoever. So if you want to grow something down here, especially some kind of edible that has a lot of demands with feeding, you're either going to have to dump a ton of fertilizers, which all of my permaculture friends don't like to do, or you can build up the soil. The easiest way to do that would be, of course, to buy some, which I've done over here in the Banana Islands, as they're affectionately called. But I know a lot of the old-timers would scoff at buying your own dirt. So this is kind of like a lazy man's way of composting. I could just let these heaps sit here and break down over time, but then I would still have to transport it throughout the yard. And so what I'm doing instead is just putting a layer down about 3 to 6 inches. It'd be better if this stuff were in finer pieces. This stuff is actually pretty coarse, as you can see. They weren't too thorough in shredding it. You can actually still see some whole palm fronds here. But over time, this stuff is going to break down. It's going to have the immediate benefit of protecting all of the plants that I grow here. And let me show you some of the plants that are actually overtaking my yard instead of the grass. Okay, now what you're looking at is not, in fact, a bed of kudzu. This is one of the plants that I'm most excited about here in my yard. This is something called the Seminole pumpkin. It's a kind of squash that was grown by the Native Americans, and instead of grass, I'm having this take over my front yard. So the benefits is, number one, I won't have to mow my grass every week, and number two, it'll choke out the weeds, something my neighbors will appreciate, and number three, take a look at this. All throughout here are these pumpkins. Now these don't get to be huge jack-o'-lantern type things. They get to be a couple pounds each, but this plant is so prolific. I mean, this thing is only a couple months old. I just planted it from seed. And let's take a look at some of these pumpkins. There's one. It's got all these flowers everywhere. You can actually eat the flowers as well. and this thing grows out of control. It's going to take over the entire yard. Here's a little pumpkin. Got some bigger ones over here. Small ones. See them everywhere. Here's one that's starting to ripen up, turn kind of a yellow color. That's a bigger one. Here's a couple big ones down in here. Look at these things. Oh my gosh. These pumpkins are only a couple weeks old, and this is just one plant. It's probably got about a dozen of these pumpkins already. So, I mean, honestly, I could probably just live off these pumpkins alone. But these are going to take over my entire yard. It's going to choke out all this troublesome grass. And instead of having to take care of my yard is going to take care of me. Okay, now, when a lot of people think of growing fruits and vegetables in your yard, they think of kind of like rows, like a tilled garden. But I don't think that's the case. I subscribe more to the thought of edible landscaping. So you take your edible plants and you arrange them in a visually appealing way. So now, what I have here is my driveway. And alongside my driveway, I have these rows of papaya trees. Now, you're probably not going to be able to grow papaya where you live, but you can grow something similar. You can grow like fruit trees or blackberry bushes, something to line the driveway and look appealing, but still give back to you. Take a look at this. These things are about a year old, and I started them from seed as well. That's a papaya. And these guys have papayas down here. All of them are growing papayas. All along my driveway, I have these papaya trees. It looks really decorative, in my opinion. These things are going to grow tall, too. They're going to get to be about 15, 30 feet tall, and they're going to supply me with delicious, fresh fruit. Now, papaya is probably not my favorite fruit to buy at the grocery store. You know, that stuff, it kind of tastes like, a really old cantaloupe or something like that. But papaya, grown from a yard, is supposed to be a lot fresher. So even if it's not, you can always throw it in a blender with a smoothie. I like to take some instant pudding mix, dump that in there. You know, it doesn't all have to come from the garden. So this is just another example of how I can have my yard look better, be more maintenance-free, but still give back to me. Okay, now here's a very brief tour of one of my latest projects, something I'm really excited about. This is an aquaponics setup, or the beginnings of one. Now, aquaponics isn't a term you hear too much, but it's very similar to hydroponics, which is growing plants without soil. Now, this is something that I just very recently spruced up. This is the beginnings of my aquaponics system. It's basically a Tupperware tub on some cinder blocks that I've covered in a bunch of rocks that I've gathered up from around the property. And here is a little pond that I've actually pulled out of the garbage. Got this for free. You can keep your eyes open. You might find a lot of stuff that will cost almost nothing. So the way this will work is the pond has fish in it. In this case, I'm probably going to do tilapia. In tropical climates, tilapia are probably the best choice. So the fish produce their waste, their nitrates, and the water will get pumped up into this grow bed. I'll give you a better view in a minute. And then all the plants growing in the grow bed, they eat the nitrates, the fish waste, and then the water is drained back down into the pond, and the nitrates are removed, so it cleans it for the fish. So on one hand, you're growing the fish, the tilapia, to eat or to sell. If you're growing something like carp or ornamentals or really anything you want, I mean, you can do whatever you want with fish. It depends on the climate you live in and whether you eat it year-round. If you want to grow something tropical like tilapia or guppies, heck, you can grow angelfish in there. It doesn't matter. And then in here you have the plants. You can grow herbs. Those are usually the most popular ones. It tends to do best with like herbaceous type plants, just vegetative stuff. But you can grow fruit in there. There's a big movement in Australia. They grow papayas and tomatoes and all sorts of stuff in there. You might have to monitor the nutrient levels and add stuff like iron and potassium. Usually you don't have to add too much in the aquaponics system. The fish waste is really a well-balanced fertilizer. But this is just another example of trying something new and getting some good results out of your backyard. Plus, I mean, I think this looks pretty nice. I'm really excited to get this up and running and just sit here in the morning. So here's the interior of the grow bed. As promised, this is just a Tupperware container I got at Walmart. It has a wooden frame, which you may or may not be able to see down in there. That kind of supports the weight of the gravel. This is just pea gravel. It's pretty deep for a hydroponic bed. This is probably about 18 inches deep. A lot of the times it's just about 6 to 8 inches, but if you're growing something like tomatoes or papaya especially, I want to try something like that, then you need to have a deeper grow bed to support all the roots. Plus, with all the depth to it, it's going to give the plants more water, especially in this hot climate. And then the water drains down into this pipe, and it'll go right back into the pond. That's just a brief overview. Once I do some more work on this, I'll give you guys a quick update. Whew, it's good to get out of the sun. Well, that concludes the first episode of the Cultivated Jungle, and I hope you've enjoyed it. So what can you expect to see in the future? Well, I love exotic plants. I also love exotic animals. And what better way to have fun in the yard than combining the two? I'm on the lookout for adding some chickens to my garden, seeing how that kind of works out. I'd like to have them free range, but that's kind of a questionable topic around here, living in my neighborhood. I don't have any ordinances, but still, people get reported for chickens around here. But like I said, I'm always pushing the boundaries, so you guys can probably expect to see that in the future, see some pretty crazy-looking chickens. I have a flair for the unusual, so whatever you see is not going to be the norm. Same thing with plants. I've got some loofah sponges that I'm actually planting around here. They're going to grow up the size of like my fence and my barn. Not my barn, my shed. I don't have a barn yet. And loofah sponges are pretty cool. I think I've had them before. Somebody gave me these mystery gourds that were about this big and green and kind of squishy. Loofah is supposed to be edible as a squash when it's young, and you can cook it and stir fry it, and then if you wait till it's old, it develops like that hard husk. By the way, did you know that loofah actually grows from a plant? Everybody thinks it comes from a sponge in the sea. Now, there's two types of sponges anyway, the sea sponge that you get from the ocean, and then the loofah sponge, which is not really the spongy type. It's more just like almost like a corn cob kind of skeleton. Yeah, a corn skeleton, that's what it looks like. But anyway, I'm always on the lookout for any kind of exotic plant, or usually edibles, but I've got a flair for the carnivorous, and hopefully I'll get some of those set up. So if you like that kind of stuff, if you like the exotics, the unusuals, if you like to see people push the boundaries of what's allowed and what's thought to be possible, then stay tuned. You're going to see some pretty entertaining stuff around here. Well, enjoy your spring, and I'll talk to you later.